How's it going, everybody? I hope you're doing well. I know it's everything's a bit worse right now because our favorite game is no longer with us for the time being. Hopefully it'll be a short break between this open beta and the launch. But in the interim, I just wanted to take some time here and put up a video about my thoughts on how the open beta went. Wanted to talk about the new things that were added to the open beta as compared to the closed betas. Wanted to talk about the incredible interest that this game has generated, and we really saw that come through with the numbers that they were able to pull during this open beta. Want to talk about all things good, all things bad, and a couple of changes, a couple of recommendations I have that I think would be very good for the game. Some of the changes are in ranked. The changes that I think should happen mostly are concerned with ranked. So if you enjoy this, please drop a like and consider subscribing. It really helps the channel. All right, let's get right into this. So as I mentioned, the interest and the player counts that this open beta was able to pull were pretty remarkable. So from what I saw, the peak concurrent player count on Steam was over 250,000 players. Now, this open beta, of course, was on PC, it was on Xbox, and it was on PlayStation. So you got to think that at any given time, they probably had about 500,000 players playing the game at once. And so I think it's important to take note that the servers, for the most part, were able to handle that stress. They did a good job with managing their servers. Now, of course, they didn't have any Oceania servers. They had some issues. They tried to roll it out near the end of the beta, kind of midway, like a little over halfway through the end. Weren't able to do it, so Australia and Oceania were not able to get their own servers, but they tried, and I'm sure for launch, they'll be able to get that figured out. Over 7.5 million players in total played the finals open beta. Now, I don't know, it's hard to kind of compare that. We haven't had, at least in a few years it seems, we haven't had a beta that's generated this much interest, a beta that's gotten into the top 5 on the Steam chart numbers. So pretty fantastic to see that. So much interest in this game, as there rightly should be. For the open beta, they added a new game mode, Bank It, which I really enjoyed, actually. So that we had, for the game modes for the open beta, we were able to play 2 quick play modes, Quick Cash and Bank It. And then they had ranked and unranked tournaments that you could drop into. I actually really like the idea of the unranked tournaments. It simplifies it, 3 teams instead of 4, 3 rounds instead of 4, and it really lets you test the waters on how tournaments work before you hop into the inevitability of the sweatshop that is ranked tournaments. A couple notes on how the game felt. So certainly at the beginning of the open beta and before they put out their first patch, the game felt great. The game felt really good, less stuttery, more polished, running at higher frame rates. They put out a patch a couple days into the open beta that I thought made it feel like the second closed beta, if that makes sense. It feels like the gameplay, how it felt in the second closed beta. And then seemed to happen is they were able to then fix that patch and it went back to feeling how it did at the beginning. So overall, I would say felt better than the previous closed betas. Certainly ran at 20, 30, 40 higher frames, at least for me and my friends. It's definitely some lag still, but you have to remember this is still a beta, not released yet. Another great feature that worked most of the time, the reconnect feature for tournaments. You were able to reconnect if something happened, if if you lost connection loading in, or if you're mid-game somehow and you get a crash. I would say probably a good 75% of the time that reconnect feature did end up working, which is pretty impressive for an open beta. And so the time to kill really does feel balanced right now. There was a couple things in the closed betas that made time to kill on certain characters not feel great, but in the open beta, I think they kind of tweaked a couple little things, fixed a little bit of the nuance in that. Feels really good. The gunplay felt even better in this open beta. Gun balancing, I still think there's some things they could do to balance some of the guns. Maybe, you know, lowering mag size in a couple guns, raising mag size in some other guns. For overall damage output for most of the guns, I think they did a pretty good job. I just think that there's certain weapons, maybe the pistol could have a few, the silenced pistol on the light could have a few less bullets. The Scar on the medium class could have a few more bullets to have it as a viable competitor to the AK. Honestly, like I played heavy for the majority of all the betas, and I think the shotgun, which I main, I could see it having 12 shots instead of 16. It's very powerful up close. You know, they maybe balance that out a little bit in this beta. So what was also crazy about this open beta is they ran a mini Halloween event. Now, what game have you played where the devs run an in-game event in the open beta? I mean, how you doing? These guys are crazy. I love these guys. Another great thing they added, as they've had in all betas up to this point, is permanent rewards. So for this one, they had a full battle pass. I think it was 16 levels. I'll have to check. 16 levels of permanent rewards just from playing the open beta. Also ranked rewards, which they've had in each beta up to this point. And in the first two closed betas, you also were able to get some permanent rewards. So they're really putting in the extra work to give you permanent rewards for just playing. Okay, let's talk about a couple things that I think weren't so great about the open beta and just how the game kind of works in general. So this is actually going to be one of my changes to consider that we're going to put up at the end as well. So this is the whole idea of last second steals and not as a defending team accumulating cash while you hold the point. So what happens a lot of the time in this game is you get a cash box, you go to a point, you set up your defenses, yes, which is great. But the issue is, I mean, even if you outplay a team coming in, an attacking team coming in, if you outplay them maybe 2 times, get squad wipes on them twice, they still have that last third chance to come in based on how long, you know, you have to hold the cash out for. They have that last chance to come in and steal everything and end up with all the money. Now, I think you should get rewarded for stealing. There should be a bonus for stealing. And there should be I guess you could call it a bonus, or you could just call it a reward, an incentive to hold the cash out. So while you're holding a cash out area, while you're defending an area, no matter where it is, you should be receiving a compensation. You should be getting money. Another change I think they should make. So yes, they need to make all classes viable. Heavy is viable in its own way. You've got the shield that you can use. You got good close range weapons. Medium has heals, and light has movement. But one thing about the light class that I think was a little bit overpowered, certainly after they buffed it in the open beta, was the glitch grenades. Now, you get hit with a glitch, you can't even play the game as it was intended to be played. You can't, so I mained heavy, like I said. I can't use my mesh shield. I can't use my dome shield. For that, I can't use any of my specializations. I can't switch to my other weapon, and I can't use my C4, and that goes for every class. You can't switch to your gadgets. You can't use your specialization. I think that's a bit too penal for one grenade, one in-game item to kind of take everything away and just and not let you do anything. I kind of mentioned briefly there the server and matchmaking issues. I had one friend in particular who was hit kind of harder than the rest of us on matchmaking and lobby server issues. He was every 30 seconds or so he was kicked out of the lobby. Wasn't great. Now that actually did end up getting fixed after I think the final patch for the open beta. They fixed that, but he was struggling to stay in the lobby. He was struggling to stay in certain games. I'm sure some of you guys experienced that as well. Just got to remember this is still a beta, and I think they did an overall pretty decent job with server stability for the whole thing. I did see there were more issues with console servers than with PC servers, if that is a distinction that they had, but there were more, at least, connection issues with the console side of things. So let's just discuss quickly the changes I think they should consider making heading into release. So as I mentioned, I think that the nature of how you accumulate money should be tweaked a little bit to incentivize holding cash outs and not just coming in and stealing last second when everything is absolute mayhem. Especially if there's, say you're playing a ranked tournament and there's 3 of the 4 teams on 1 cash out. If you're getting bombarded by 2 teams as a defending team, you don't stand too much of a chance unless you really get some help from the other teams. So that's why I really think that you should be accumulating money while holding the point. And yes, you should get a reward for stealing. You should get a reward for stealing back if you have it stolen and then you get it back. But those should be smaller bonuses. You should always be earning once that cash out is in the vault. Other thing that my friends and I talked about, and I think would be a pretty good change to consider, at least with certain events. And so I'm talking here about in-game events, things like low gravity, things like mega damage, things like dead go boom, and orbital lasers. I think that's all of them. So orbital lasers, I love that. Great event. Prevents people from camping in one position. You can make plays with it as well. If you sit on top of a building that you need to blow through the roof and get to the cash out vault, you sit still for a second, you get a laser coming down, you can make a play with it. Actually, you can play it intelligently. However, events like low grav and ranked kind of change the balance. So I think that it wouldn't be a bad idea to take out in-game events for ranked and kind of just bring it down to gunplay and skill in playing the game. Don't mind mega damage. You get more points for killing people, for getting kills, but things like dead go boom, where you get a close range kill and all of a sudden you're dead, I don't think that's appropriate at a ranked level necessarily. Low grav, everybody's bouncing around and you can't really, you hit a bounce pad, you go 3 times as high into the air. It's tough whenever you're trying to make a play and all of a sudden you're floating up there. I'm a guy up in the air and I'm a floating guy. Like, what am I doing now? I can't do anything. No, thank you. So I think those would certainly be good tweaks, changes to consider. But overall here, really a good open beta. Thrilled to see the numbers that they were able to get in a beta. Pretty incredible, pretty remarkable, and overall did a great job with updating. Even ran an in-beta event, which is crazy. I think things are looking really up for this game. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. Really appreciate it. Again, like and consider subscribing. Really helps the channel out. And bye for now. Cheers.